the old PDP.
No.
If you look at what happened,
you can't.
That your PDP went to court and they challenged Oyinlola.
A community without a common ground will eventually become a battleground.
This is Pastor Chibo phoning from local government, Enugu State.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Political Voices are in my CNN here. I love it, and I love it very much. My name is Lily from Kogi State. Political Voices always keeping me busy, always making me happy as I'm on strike as a student.
Political Voices. One story, many angles.
Listen, I am telling you that
I don't agree. I don't.
Yeah, who the
No. You can't say that.
Politics. Where is good governance?
Everyone is a political animal.
I don't like politics.
But I love political voices.
On Political Voices, we talk politics. In a country of diverse interests, who gets what, when, and how is politics. And this is our business on Political Voices. Nigeria, a country of over 160 million people. Political Voices is gauging the temperature, setting the agenda. Political Voices exclusively on Dream FM, 9 o'clock in the morning, Monday to Friday.
And 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Saturdays.
Good morning and welcome to Political Voices on 92.5 Enugu's Dream FM. Political Voices is a session of comments, interviews and analysis of trending political stories as they affect and shape the world around you. Today is Thursday. It is the 27th day of August 2020. This morning, we turn our attention to the analysis of the relationship between traditional institutions and governments in the Southeast. We look at the issues and concerns. But before we get into that, there are matters arising from the political space. The Senate berated the Minister of State for Employment, Labor and Productivity, Mr. Festus Keyamo, again on Wednesday over the recruitment of 774,000 Nigerians for the federal government's Special Public Works Program. Spokesperson for the Senate, Dr. Ajibola Bashiru, in an interview described as false a claim by the minister that each member of the National Assembly was given 30 slots in the ongoing nationwide public works recruitment. As the Senate condemned Keyamo, the Ogun State Chairman of Special Public Works, Senator Gbenga Obadara, in an interview, said 4 doctoral and 200 master's degree holders were among applicants in the state. He said the quote that President Muhammadu Buhari had a few months ago approved the employment of 774,000 workers as part of efforts to cushion the economic hardship caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Moving ahead, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, will retain the 2019 Edo voter registration for the governorship election due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Edo Resident Electoral Commissioner Dr. Johnson Alalibo made this known during a dialogue with the Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room, a coalition of over 70 civil society organizations in Abuja. According to Alalibo, there are over 2 million voters in Edo State registered, while the voter cards collected are 1,726,738. And finally, 10 months after President Muhammadu Buhari ordered the forensic audit of troubled Niger Delta Development Commission, forensic auditors have finally been appointed to go to the various Niger Delta states to conduct the audit. This was disclosed by the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Godswill Akpabio, who briefed journalists after Wednesday's Federal Executive Council meeting. Mr. Akpabio, former governor of Akwa Ibom State, said the FEC approved a memo for the appointment of the forensic auditors. And it's going to cost hundreds of millions, by the way. And these are some of the issues making the headlines in on the polity. Just to remind you that we are streaming live on 3 platforms: on YouTube, Our channel, our YouTube channel is Dream TV Enugu. And on Facebook, it's 925 Dream FM. On Twitter, it's Dream. It's at Dream925 FM. You can send us a WhatsApp message on 0902 0020 925. Stay with us. Thank you. This is Political Voices on 92.5 Enugu's Dream FM. This morning, our focus is on the analysis of relationship between traditional institutions and governments in the Southeast. We look at the issues and the concerns. We had this topic last Thursday, and we promised to have a sequel to the discussion. Of course, there were contributions from many people, but there were actually outstanding contributions from some other people who have a few things to say about the situation, triggered by the journey undertaken by some traditional rulers in Anambra State in the company of Engineer Arthur Eze, and that created some situation in Anambra State where 12 traditional rulers had their certificates of recognition withdrawn. So that we're looking at the situation that prompted that particular line of action. But this morning we will be having the insight from someone who understands this particular discourse. I'm talking about Prince Chukwuemeka Onyeso Okpala Ezenanri. He's an author, writer, and a social critic. Good morning to you, Okpala Ezenanri, and welcome.
Thank you,
to
Alex.
Political Voices. All right, I will start by asking you, let's unbundle the concept of Igbo-Enweze, because that's where the thing is triggering from. That if the constituted authority do not recognize that there's some kind of hierarchy and leadership standing in this part of the world, where did it emanate from? And is it a truism that Igbo-Enweze?
I wish to make some preliminary declarations. One,
all right.
Eze in English is king, not chief. It was convenient for the colonial authorities to brand our kings chiefs because they didn't want anybody to compete with the Queen of England. So they banished the word king and branded all of them chiefs. Two, before the coming of the white man, there were 66 kingship institutions in Igbo land. So those who say Igbo-Enweze or the Warren chieftaincy introduced the concept of kingship in Igbo land, well, they should. I regard them as people who are lazy intellectually and who do not want to inform themselves on existing facts. There are, both in our archives, Enugu here, various libraries everywhere. You can pick up these things and see. But let me just give you a quick rundown of a few institutions. Incidentally, the oldest kingship institution in Nigeria is in Igbo land, Ezenri, dating back to 900 AD. Abo dates back to 950 AD. Onitsha 1750 AD. Aro 1650. Ogidi 1600. Obosi 1600. Ibawani, you'll be surprised, 1700 AD. Ihalumana, 1550 AD. Opi, 1700 AD. In Soka, 1550 AD. In Bologu, 1700, and so on and so forth. I just took a few samples. And surprisingly, our people are conscious of the fact that there is Aro, whom the British fought in 1901. Before Warren chieftaincy. They went there because Aro was slave raiding. He was he tolerated human sacrifices. They had the Igwekala, where people went into a cave and pretended to be spirits and be talking to people, making judgment on cases and the rest of them. In spite of that, people go on telling you the Warren chieftaincy introduced, which is nonsensical. It doesn't exist. Now, the Igbo is a propaganda the colonial and missionary authorities introduced into Igbo life. From 1911, when they attacked the oldest and most hegemonic institution in Igbo land, that's Ezenri. The institution is based on spirituality, no violence, nothing except introducing things like the concept of the 4 markets, the concept of the month, and the concept of Yaro. The Yam culture, Ifejoko, and about 12 legacies which he introduced. So, no violence. They found that there was no way they could penetrate Igbo land, both religious missionaries and even the administration, because the control Ezenri had on Igbo land was not based on any military might. It was a matter of, if you do this, it's Zalo. Sanctions, what are they? Until you purge yourself of these sanctions, you cannot fully participate in anything you are doing. You are not even qualified to offer prayers, iwaj, or ego anything, until you purge yourself of these sanctions. So it was difficult, and they had to deploy the district authorities and threaten to invade Nri, 1911, compelling him, for the first time, to leave Nri. Those who are talking about traditional rulers going to Abuja, that is their fundamental human right, it will surprise you that once you ascend the throne of Nri, you don't leave Nri community again till that. It was 1911 that the authorities found that it did help the mysticism in the throne. They now ordered Ezenri for the first time to leave Nri and go to Oka Native Court. And it's reported by an anthropologist, British anthropologist, that when he entered the customary court, the Native Authority, this in Oka, people flew out of the windows because till then they believed he was a spirit, and very few people saw him. So when you talk about Kodok, they have fundamental, no. Every privilege to be a king or traditional ruler, as you call it now, is a privilege. And it has consequences. It has obligations. It has responsibilities. In Nri, there's a code of conduct in the ordinary Nri. Incidentally, I have a copy here. Name up to how many of them? 68 of them. 61 of them. And this is because a lot of them have been abrogated to make it possible for people in this modern time be able to interact beyond Nri. Otherwise, any day Ezenri left the village for anywhere now, he has to make some appropriations to his ancestors to be able to do that. So, being was a propaganda. When it was a propaganda, they used to destroy or make us look like uncultured people. And incidentally, people in Lagos bought it, and they started branding also Koro and all this kind of thing. But before the first Eze or Oba in Yoruba land was crowned, that is the Ife. There's a difference of 145 years between Ezenri and Ife. Don't mind the fact that they are now beginning to make it look like we came from them. No, it's not true. It's not possible. A son cannot have a son before his father. Otherwise, where is he coming from? If we were there 145 years before them, there's a more likelihood that since our people traveled even beyond Benin to conduct spiritual functions, that they probably got to where is it? Ife. And they had a guest house or guest room where they stayed and offered these priestly services. And I'll tell you, in my upcoming book, which is titled The that is something dirty on white spectrum, because a lot of that have been thrown on the institution of Ezenri. It is likely that they got to Ife and offered these priestly services, and from that, the Yorubas developed the culture of Oba. The highest title in Imri is Oba.
All right then.
I'm an Oba.
Okay.
And from there, probably their kingship developed. It is likely. It needs some research.
It's okay.
The other.
So, who then is a traditional ruler or an Eze? And what is the role of government presently in their emergence in the southeast? I'd like to know your response on the role government currently plays in the emergence of traditional rulers, because that's the nomenclature used for them
now
today.
Barring these 66 communities which used to have kingship without any involvement by government, each town had its own way of appointing or a king emerging. In our own case, there are 6 families, lineages in the whole community of up to 24 kindreds, from whom the king must emerge. It rotates between these 6 families in 3 villages. And these families are direct descendants of the founder of Unri. And in a lot of other communities like Onitsha, it's like that. But in 1976, I think it was 76, when Atongbera enacted the decree on edict on chieftaincy or traditional rulers, it created kingship in every community. And in Anambra, for example, in 1981, the state enacted its own traditional law, which is an amendment of the 1976 edict. There, they stipulated terms and conditions of doing it. As a matter of fact, in 1976, the edict says communities that don't have kingship tradition should now make up their own tradition of appointing traditional rulers and file with the government. And most communities in Anambra State, for example, and the Enugu, the same thing, file these terms and conditions. And it's up to them. Whenever they want to amend it, they will go to the town union and get it amended. But that becomes the constitution for appointment, and not only the modalities, how the Eze will behave himself. In our own case, the terms are stipulated there. It is clearly stipulated. But the government had to come in because, well, you know, in the natural society, there was order. When everybody was a traditional worshiper, there was fear. There are things you do not do. Everybody lived on the land. Not now. Some fly in the air, some go to space, and the people don't care. And then you come in this issue of if you commit an offense and you are asked to swear by the Bible, people indiscriminately swear by the Bible and believe that nothing can happen. But unlike before, people were afraid to swear by the idol or whatever, you know. So there's disorder, and in order to bring some order into growing society, the government now had to recognize in any community, when you appoint a traditional ruler, you will now make a resolution to the government, and the government will accord recognition. Mark you, this is what the law says, but most of our governors abuse that. I know a number of cases where the community had come 90+% decided it will be X, and the governor went and picked somebody and appointed him. Such communities don't know peace. They will never know peace, because you know our people, we are democratic people. Don't mind this jargon about republicanism. We are Democrats. Even in the kingship, the Palace of Ezenri, the oldest traditional institution in Nigeria, there's democracy. The Eze doesn't when he calls his cabinet, he doesn't offer any opinion. The topic is brought out, and the 12 representatives of the kindreds go on discussing until there's what he thinks is they have come to some agreement. Then he rings his bell, and the person who gets word from him will go and ask him, what is it? And he will tell the person, that is what that man said. And the man will repeat whatever he said, and the group will ratify it. It's not a dictatorship. And even in the code of conduct, it's clearly stated that Ezenri should not be a dictator. One of the terms of in the code of conduct of Ezenri is that he shall not be a dictator and shall not be autocratic in taking a decision. This is there all the time, which shows our people are Democrats. Forget this branding us Republican. After all, what is Republican? This thing. But the truth of the matter is that we're Democrats. So, since Enugu has over 500 autonomous communities, Anambra used to have 177. It's now 179. Abia, Imo, and the rest of them, all of them have more than 500. Now, if you didn't regulate, if government didn't come in, you can be sure that some communities will be going about with 2-3 traditional rulers. And that is why they came in and regulated that if you are not recognized as a government, you will not perform any of those functions, open functions, like Ofala or number of things that traditional rulers do. You won't do it. If you do it, it's an offense and it's punishable by imprisonment of terms.
I would like to know, matter of fact, the role of strong men in the emergence of traditional rulers, because it does appear that some of the strong men or men of influence in some communities and in some states seem to have the ability to summon some of the traditional rulers and maybe take them on a journey if they want. Is it right? How can
you be living in isolation? Where is Nigeria headed to?
Yeah,
Nigeria is in the pit of poverty. When you are told you are capital of poverty in the world, you know the implications. The implications are insecurity. The implications is immorality, fall of decay of values. So those who have money can always make things happen. After all, our politics is 100% monetized. If you don't have, even the political parties, we so state, if you want to contest for governorship, 1 million or 2 million or 5 million, will somebody, a professor learned in politics who can run a government properly, probably a former permanent secretary who knows administration, where will he get 5 million to file his papers? So the society is monetized, and all these immoralities are normal consequences of poverty. You cannot say it's right. It's wrong. It is wrong. And people who do such things, anybody who calls himself traditional ruler, but you know, of course, like I told you, in most communities in Igbo land, traditional rulership is a new culture. They never had any. Outside this 66, the rest don't have any culture of kingship. So it does not surprise me that, and I'm happy that out of that 13 that went to Abuja, none of them had this tradition of kingship. These are all nascent places who either came from Warren Chieftaincy or Southeast Edict or Anambra 1981 Chieftaincy Act. So it is not wrong. It's not right. When you became a traditional ruler, yes, I was a member of the Anambra Elders Council for 8 years under P2B, and I know that. But we approved, the government proposed, and we approved a code of conduct for traditional rulers in Anambra State, which included that you should be resident in the state. It is not a new thing. As I told you before, if you are going to be Ezenri, the first thing is that you are, of course, there is no talk about being living outside Nri. And let me tell you also that if you want to be Ezenri, the first thing is that even if you were a Reverend Father and you want to be Ezenri, you have to revert to traditional worship. You must be a traditional worshiper because our customs and traditions are based on traditional worship. You are going to regulate the markets. You are going to regulate the moon when the new moon comes and goes. You are going to declare the year, proclaim the year, and these things are based on traditional worship. So you cannot tell me that there's freedom of religion. If there's religion, you want to stick to a religion outside our own tradition, you stay out. You don't even contest.
So, asking you this a bit more directly, the journey undertaken by those 13 traditional rulers in Anambra State with Engineer Arthur Eze to the presidency, do you think that the reaction from the Anambra State government is called for?
The reaction from Anambra State government is consequent upon a resolution of the Traditional Rulers Council of Anambra State. They came together and said, these people have insulted the institution. The Code of Conduct stipulates that before you leave Anambra State as a traditional ruler, particularly on such publicly known missions, you must clear it with the government of the state. 2, the group misrepresented traditional institutions in Anambra State without reference to them. They didn't get any discuss with them that they were going to Abuja. And what are we talking about? What they were going to tell the president were in the papers. They have a review of what their presentation, what they were going to tell him, to thank him for Enugu Onitsha Road, to thank him for Enugu Port Harcourt Road. That week, last week, sorry, I had to drive from Enugu, from 82 Div to Ugo Nyama, that is in Mikin. It is the most horrible road within this Enugu community. And yet, it is part and parcel of Enugu Onitsha Road. And I'm told that passing through Milking, you are just tempting your God. Not to talk about driving all the way to Onitsha. And yet, this lie is in what they were going to thank the president for. I haven't gone anywhere since the COVID, but I've traveled to Umaya some 6 months ago. It's here and there. There are reconstructions here and there. Most of the road is still one way. And then you find these herdsmen occupying the road at, what's the name of that place? I've forgotten. So these things are there. The Enugu Port Harcourt Road is not yet restored as a dual carriage way. Until you finish that, you don't go and thank anybody for a job not yet done. You can only go there and say, oh, please help us and complete this. Then you are representing public interest. But you go and begin to thank somebody for a job that he's supposed to do, which he hasn't done, you are presenting yourself as a slave. And we are democratic people who abhor that kind of thing. So the traditional rulers in Anambra State got together and say, these people disgraced us. We suspend them from the Traditional Rulers Council, those of them who are members. And the governor merely ratified what the Traditional Rulers Council did. If you were a traditional ruler and you're a member of that council, you will feel like they did.
So, in essence, you are saying that, all right, that's a journey that shouldn't have been embarked on. Is that what it is?
Of course! So of course, because the Code of Conduct they subscribe to debars them from making such a journey without clearance from the government of the state.
But they didn't go alone. They went there in the company of someone.
It doesn't matter. Are they infants? They are not infants. Some of them are as old as I am. Some are, none of them is less than 50 or 60. So they're all adults. Even if, who else? Even if the president comes here and say, let's go, it's your business to clear with your governor. Because the terms of your being a government recognized traditional ruler stipulates that you need to.
So, is there, from just before we go to the phone lines, there has to be a way out of the situation? Is maybe removing the certificate of recognition the only solution to the problem? Is there any other way of remedying the situation?
No, I think they didn't say they are removing their recognition. What they did is suspension.
Okay.
And they expect that within the suspension, if they behave themselves properly, their suspension will be lifted. But if they go on abusing or removing the chairman of Anambra State Traditional Rulers Council or playing politics with their punishment, the thing can amount to revocation of their recognition. And if you are the authority in the state, that is the only responsible thing you will do.
All right, this is Political Voices on 92.5 Enugu's Dream FM. This morning, we are taking a look at the analysis of relationship between traditional institutions and governments in the Southeast, the issues and the concerns. And in the studio this morning is Balanzananri, Prince Chukwamaka Onyeso. He's an author, writer, and a social critic. We would like to hear from you. Those of you watching us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, we will like to hear from you, and so you can make your contributions. And we'll also like to listen to you on the phone lines at 0811 292 5925. 0811 292 5925 or 0902 0020 925. That's the WhatsApp line. And of course, you can also try 0809 8888 925. Those are the numbers you can call, and you can also have the. All right, then. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Okay, just someone is on the line there. Hello. All right, let's try this phone line. Hello, good morning. All right, call us back. Let's see if we'll have someone on the line. Hello, good morning. Hello. Hello. Okay, we will just take some of the messages we have on social media. We'll have quite a chunk of them. And this one here says, the man in the studio is a true son of Igbo. I really envy his deep wealth of knowledge and sound articulation. He is informative. He has a good DNA and a fine generic makeup. Mike Abo from UNN. Now I have a handful of information to hit back at my mother's people from the north who brag of having a hegemony before the Igbos. All right, you see what's going on here. And keep those messages coming on WhatsApp. This one says, it's from, okay, it says, good morning, Alex. Today's topic is somehow interwoven with the concept of, all right, what's his take on the origin of the system? He's talking about the Osu system in Igbo land, and what's his take on the origin of the system, and how would he want it finally resolved? Okay, though that's not our focus, we'll still, I'm sure he will respond to that. And another message here on, okay, we'll have messages on Facebook. Let's take them. Ikemefuna Chimex Nelson says, good morning, all of you in the studio. He's saying that let's be sincere, traditional rulers in Igbo land have lost value and respect due to their various involvement in politicking and other forms of activities, which they which they shouldn't have engaged in. That's what they're saying. And that summarily, what we need to do now is to reclaim a new face of traditional rulers in Igbo land, or is to dethrone all traditional rulers that were elected or appointed by any government and allow the gods through divinity to choose their king. All right. Comrade Jeremiah Okore from UAE says, ideally, traditional institution is not supposed to be an appendage to the state government. He that pays the piper must always dictate the tune. As such, traditional rulers must cease to derive their staff and funding from the government to enable them perform optimally. Nats Nwoko says, this discourse is very educating. We need people like Opala Ezanari to be talking on core traditional issues. I like his explanation on traditional and nascent. Okay. Aloysius Anene says, good morning to the analyst in the studio. I wish to use this platform to beg the government of Enugu State to begin the process of giving certificate of recognition to Igwe elect of communities that has concluded the process of selecting their traditional rulers. As a result of the inability to do the needful, the Ministry of Chieftaincy Affairs in the state is redundant and nothing is going on there. All right, these are some of the messages we have. Let's see if we have callers on the line. Hello, good morning. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hello?
Okay, hello, good morning to you.
Alex, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Good morning. Good morning, sir. To our guests in the house. My name is Odazi. I'm reaching you from Ila, Delta State. Wow. I'm glad you talk about this Igbo thing. Traditional rulers. And I don't know why we keep saying it. For example, here in Ila, we must go to Nri. Abashi must come and do the coronation. It's been there for over 100 years. So why? Tell you what, most of us are misunderstanding the issue at hand. To be Eze, it's a privilege. It's sacred. You must sit at your throne. In fact, here, you don't have any right to sleep outside your domain. Sleep. The Eze must be at home before 6, and he can't travel out of his domain without appropriate arrangement. Number one, he has his own local council of chiefs. Some royal palace chiefs and all that. He must have an express commission. Then, of course, talking about government, someone said being tied to a apron string of a government. The governor, for God's sake, is the chief security officer. So if you must leave his domain and you are such a highly placed person, you got to tell him where you're going to. You owe him that, not to talk of going to discuss politics. Why should you go to discuss politics outside your domain? Why? After all, the traditional throne, don't forget, was insulated from partisan politics. Is somebody listening? Partisan politics. The traditional ruler in Nigeria has no right to participate in partisan politics. And what they did is partisan politicking. And it's an aberration.
Okay.
It's just a shame, Maka, what has happened to the Igbo race. So, sir, you there, call your colleagues. Let us put things right.
All right. Then.
Let us find a school.
Thank you.
Can they form a body to bring all these obis together? Here in Delta State, he's a very young king. Very, very young indeed. But when he sneezes, all of us will get malaria. Because we say, come, let us go. We are going here or going there.
Okay.
There are many of them like that. Obibodo, he's a very old man.
All right.
And they all cooperate.
Thank you.
They know what it means to Igweze.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much, Odaze, for your thoughts this morning on the program. Thank you. All right, so we have Ebubago Felix Okafor on the line. Good morning to you, Ebubago Okafor. Do we have you on the line? I can barely hear. Hello, Ebubago. Yeah, good morning to you.
Please, thank God because of this Dream FM that has been trying to lay things bare to the public so that we will be able to discern left from right. Now, Abalanzeri, one of the key issues that the traditional rulers went to beg the presidency is because of the local government in Anambra State is supposed to be using 5% of their direct allocation to pay the traditional rulers. And for the past 16 years of ABGA, local government elections in Anambra State has been toyed with. So some traditional rulers met and selected delegates to go and appeal to the presidency to convince the governor of Anambra State to conduct local government election, because their opinion is that the election is very important, and government of Anambra State, fearing that this election will stop him from siphoning the money of the local government, and he decided to ask them, which is not proper. The traditional rulers are asking salient issue that will benefit the people, not themselves, and also attracting more development to the southeast. The governor has been going to the president, why attacking the traditional ruler? Because they went to appeal for all this. And this is my question to you, which I would like you to clear. Are you supportive of the fact that there will be no local government election in Anambra State? Are you supporting the governor of Anambra, the government of ABGA, to continually and consistently siphon local government election by refusing to conduct local government? That's my question and contribution. Thank you. Good morning.
All right, Ebubago Okafor, it is your opinion when you say government has siphoned. I don't know whether you have proof of that. That's your opinion when you say so. Please, I would like Balazanawi to respond to some of the
Thank you very much for your question. I came here to discuss traditional institutions in Igbo land. The question you asked is a political question. I didn't come here for that. Besides, one, the 5% they are talking about is not a statutory allocation. It was just an approval by Abacha. I'm not saying they should not be given, but it's not their business to go to the president. President is not a headmaster. We are running a federation. If they want to complain, they should go to the State House of Assembly and make sure that they enact a law or whatever, or go to court. But it has to be done by the Traditional Rulers Council of Anambra State, not a few dissidents of that council. It's an organized place. It's an organized place. They are making us look cheap, like infants going to the president to beg. Are we running? Well, we know we are running a dictatorship, an autocracy. We are not in a democracy, really. But let us go on making a pretense of it. Going to the president makes it look like the president is a headmaster and the governor or the states are infants led to behind. You go there and make an order and maybe get a cane and flog the governor. Let us stop belittling our mentality by subscribing to this kind of affront on what is supposed to be a federation and a democracy.
All right, I'd like to quickly ask you, have we gone too far away from the right path regarding the emergence of Igbo traditional leadership? Is the way traditional rulers emerge in Igbo land the best way they can emerge?
If you ask me, I would say they should have left traditional rulership where it traditionally belonged, in accordance with the people's tradition and culture. Now you have a whole bastardized setup. 66 out of 179 in Anambra, Enugu is over 500, Abia is over 500, Imo is over 500, and I think Ebonyi is over 300-400. So over 1,000 plus communities don't have any culture or tradition of kingship. And as far as they are concerned, it's politics. And it's really politics because they gather together in the town union and raise their hand as to who will be Eze and who will not. And of course, you know what happens to politics. A lot of exchanging of EHJ will go on. The man doesn't have to be that popular. And then you have this dimension of even after the community has voted, anybody who has access to the governor can go and get him to appoint him and disregard the whole community. I know there's a case of a man who became a traditional ruler in a community where the community had voted 90+% that X will be their traditional ruler. The governor went and gave recognition to B. And of course, the community just disregarded the man till today. It's going on. They are waiting for the governor to leave. The matter is in court. It will, by the time it grinds through the High Court to Appeal Court and the Supreme Court, the truth will come out and the man will be dethroned. So it's not the best. Traditionalists like me would have preferred that you organize the rest of the communities, because this 66 is all over, even though there are more of them in Anambra, in Enugu, and Delta. It will surprise you, because Abo started having a king 950 AD. 950. So, and there are so many communities in Delta that date as far back as 1100 or I think it's either 1100 or so, Awo Ibu, where the governor of the state comes from, and so on and so forth. So what we have is not the best, but in the concept of today and where we are, plus the fact that now you now have to talk about security in each community. And the president of town union, invariably, some of them live as far away as the north, some in the west. You can't take care of security if you are not resident in the community. So there has to be somebody who will be there. And the traditional ruler is the person who should be there.
So you think that the situation where some of the traditional rulers are not resident in their communities is also part of the problems that actually occur in those communities, especially on things regarding security.
Yes, of
and
course.
cohesion.
Of course, it's a very unfortunate event that communities will allow their traditional rulers to live outside the community. Because how can you be chief security of a community if you are not there? If there's an invasion in the night, they'll call you are in Lagos or in Kano. What do you do? If you need to go visit the police or somebody to the police or see the governor, how do you do it? So and this inherent in our tradition that you will be there.
All right, then. I would like to have your final thoughts on this discussion, especially regarding the influence of strong men in the southeast on the operation of the traditional institutions.
These strong men will always be there. The unfortunate thing is that after the Civil War, the influences, the oligarchy virtually set up these strong men. I know the case of a man who was a tractor operator, and they gave him maintenance of a refinery and paid him hundreds of millions of dollars without anything happening there. From there, the man became a monster of a rich man, and in his community, he's terrorizing everybody, and even terrorizing most of Igbo land. So these are things that happen to people who have lost a war, and let nobody forget the fact that a lot of what is happening to us is inspired and created beyond our control. Look at people demonstrating or having a meeting, and then a joint force of security invaded, and before you know it, they start shooting. America is still talking about one man on whom they fired 7 shots. It's world news. But in our own case, 20 can be killed. When they kill 20, they tell you it is 5. And we think we are civilized. We're making a joke of ourselves. And we can't get anywhere. like that. So the strong men, you can't do anything, even if you wish they are not there. As I said before, this is the byproduct of poverty, unemployment. Once you fling the thousands of naira, now the thousands, I don't mean anything now. They bring millions. You tell me somebody who has never seen 10,000 naira and you give him 50 or 100, he will hit the roof. And before you know it, if you say jump, he will tell you how high do you want me to jump.
All right.
So there's something you can do about it. Okay. And it is up to every community to resist. We are known for resisting oppression, resisting high-handedness. Every community that surrenders to that is their business. Okay. Like they say, people get in a democracy, people get the government they deserve.
All right. Just before we go, just a bit of.
And let me thank Obaze of Ela. I did like Nekwangi now.
All right. Just a bit of news. Well, of course, so much to discuss, and this matters arising in the news. The former Deputy Senate President is making a case, says unless Nigeria does away with executive legislation through executive order, the country may be heading towards authoritarianism and possible dictatorship. And Ekweremadu stated this while delivering a paper on executive order and democratic governance at the ongoing 60th conference of the Nigeria Bar Association, NBA, in Abuja on Wednesday. He says democracy envisages the division of governmental powers into 3 different arms, each with distinct powers and responsibilities clearly provided for in a country's ground norm. The philosophy behind this compartmentalization of powers is the need to preserve the liberty of citizens and prevent abuse and tyranny by one arm of government over the other. Of course, Section 4 of the 1999 Constitution provides that the legislative powers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall be vested in the National Assembly. The National Assembly is empowered to exclusively legislate for the peace, order, and good governance of the Federation or any part of it, with respect to any matter on the exclusive legislative list in the 2nd schedule of the Constitution, and it goes on and on. And just before we go, congratulations to Enugu State. Today is the 29th anniversary of the creation of the state. Congratulations to the government and people of Enugu State. And maybe to Anambra too. The 2 states suddenly emerged again as new states on this day in 1991. Very many thanks to you, Balanza Henry.
Thank you.
Prince Chukwuemeka Onyeso, author, writer, and a social critic. Thank you for your insight on the program.
Yeah, I thought you were inviting my opinion on what Deputy Senate President said.
No, there's no time for that. We will have time to discuss that in another edition of Political Voices. Very many thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yes, to Lieutenant Okereke, my production assistant, and Okeo Dogu, my producer. My name is Alex Obodo. Stay tuned now for the Dream FM News at 10. Good morning.
Oh, lunch. Guys, I'm going for lunch. Please, put more stew. Nice meal.
Ah, my chest.
Suffering from heartburn and indigestion? Try Just Eat.